Good Sunday morning, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show with you, a rather special show in light of everything that's going on. Coming to each of our homes, from our homes, including mine, we've got our regular team all assembled to discuss what is happening with the coronavirus and the impact on real estate in a variety of ways. Joining us, Randy Watkey from Swan Financial. We've got Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title, Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, and my son Greg, who is not only an agent but does all of our marketing. Thank you all, ladies and gents, for being here today.
Good evening, Bob.
Good. I thought for a second I lost your audio. So we're following, obviously, with these new times and things that are going on, we're following safe protocols. And we're recording this on Zoom. We're going to push this out on both Facebook and our links to our websites as a meeting. So if you want to watch this, you'll be able to see it at any time if you go to our YouTube channel, and we'll give that out at another time. This is not the time to talk about promoting anything other than the fact that we all have a job to do, and it's continuing to move forward, and it's a changing environment every day. Let's start with Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. What's going on with mortgages? Are you able to do mortgages at this point?
We are, and it is changing. That's a great way to put it. But I will say that I really think rates are going to drop. You're looking at APR rates in the low to mid fours on a 30-year right now, fixed mortgage.
Let's review very quickly, Randy. So when the Fed dropped their short-term interest rates, the bond market responded, and then interest rates for mortgages dropped, and then all heck broke out with people trying to refi, right?
So what happened was about a week and a half to 2 weeks before the Fed dropped their short-term rates. Short-term rates are home equity lines of credit, credit cards, car loans, things of that nature. So about a week and a half to 2 weeks before that is when long-term rates, when bonds were dropping, and that's when the refi boom. Again, we have $11 trillion in mortgages across the country.
Yeah.
And at that point, $5 trillion could have been refied, and it just absolutely refinanced. I'm sorry, I need to clarify that.
That's okay.
So and what it did is it just clogged up the system. So everybody's cleaning out that system now, and we're supposed to get $700 million to come in on the bond market here probably in the next couple of weeks, and rates should drop again for a little while. I'm doing.
So there was a backlog of refi attempts. So they raised the rate, the mortgage companies and the investors, and it should come back down again. Is what you're saying?
Should.
We don't know when.
I don't know how long it will last, and that's why I'm doing a lot of people on rate watch right now. And a lot of your clients, for that example, a lot of refinances. So I would recommend anyone who is considering a refinance, do a what if scenario. And if you want to call me, you can. Do a what if, and I'll put you on a rate watch, or you can go to the person you prefer to make that happen. Because when it does happen again, you just don't have time to call. You want to get locked. You want to get ready to get locked in. Right.
So, folks, so the takeaway from Randy is that rates are going to come back down again. You got to be ready to lock in, and if you're going to refi, so call Randy and we'll give a number out later, or you can call the loan officer that you work with. One of the problems because of the virus was that homes that were under contract some people were scared to let inspectors in because they didn't know what was going on. That goes into Brad Lawler from Home Team Inspection Service. And Brad, tell me what happened. I forgot to intro you at the very beginning. Sorry about that. Tell me what happened in your industry and what's happened since the past couple of weeks as things locked down.
So we have had to make quite a few shifts in the way that we handle not the inspection itself. The inspections that we're doing are the exact same inspections that we were doing 2 weeks ago and 2 months ago. The difference is how we interact with the clients. So the state of Indiana and the state of Kentucky is considering the home inspectors as a critical trade. So in order to support the real estate market, we have been allowed to continue to operate. The challenge for us is that we have to operate in such a way as that we are not coming in contact with homeowners, the sellers of the homes, as well as our clients. And then because my company, we work as teams, we have to maintain safe distances even as we're working together in a home. So for us, the biggest difference is that we are disinfecting hands and tools and equipment before we go into somebody's house. We are using what are called gloved inspections. So we wear gloves the entire time. When we are done with the inspection, we are going back and actually using a viricide, a disinfectant in order to wipe everything down that we've touched, even with the gloved hands.
And I should point out that one of the other big differences is that when you are finished with the inspection, or even during the inspection, in the past, you would allow the buyers to be there with their family. You're saying
Right.
now no longer is that allowed.
Yeah, so now what we've had to do is we have moved all of the walkthroughs with our clients to a video platform. In fact, we're using the same Zoom video conference platform. So the inspections that we do in the morning and in the mid-afternoon, we are actually reviewing via video conference late afternoon, early evening with the client. So we're still delivering same-day reports, but we're doing everything virtually, just as we're doing this radio interview tonight.
Yep.
So they get the same report, the same interactions, just through a camera now versus face-to-face.
Okay, let's move on, and we'll get back to both you and Randy in a few minutes here. Let's move to the legal side of this thing. Let's start with you, Chuck. You are able to, all closing attorneys are also exempt from closing down. Am I correct?
That is correct.
How does that affect your business at Crosby Law Offices?
Well, obviously, we have to follow the rules like everybody else. Same thing Brad was talking about, cleaning everything before, after, throwaway pens, everything's going to be disposable, limiting the number of people coming in, keeping the proper distances, adapting, which is what we do. We adapt. If you have somebody that is, having symptoms, that sort of thing, they're not coming in. It's, we just have to follow the rules. But you can follow the rules and still get it done.
True. It's just pivoting as to what works for each of us. Kevin Dissler from Pitt and Frank Attorney. So what's the latest on your front? How have you adapted in the closings?
Well, the only way that we can really figure a way to do it safely for our clients and our staff is, I've heard Brad use the term Zoom, the virtual closing. We were all talking about maybe 5 years out, but we're quickly evolving to that. One of the things that you're going to hear a lot about is remote online notarization. One of the problems is that we have to physically be present when your client signs a document that needs to be notarized. Some states have allowed remote online notarization where a notary with the proper credentials and the proper security in place can see you notarize a deed, a mortgage, and we're just going to have to go to that because otherwise I have to be in the room with you watching you sign the document to properly notarize it.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that and talk to Randy about what that is going to require in terms of changes. Let me move over to Lee Harris. You're doing curbside closings and going to people's homes over at Limestone Title, Lee?
Yes. We actually are having a tent set up outside. It's like a drive-through closing, essentially. So people can literally drive up. We'll give them the documents. We will stand there and watch them outside, signing what they want to sign or need to sign. We'll go to their houses. We will hand them the documents, watch them sign through the door. Anything that needs to happen in order for them to be able to sign, but also for us to follow the rules that currently exist. We have that in place right now. So,
yeah, and that's what I was saying, Bob. We all adapt. Kevin, Lee, myself. If you have somebody that can't make it to a closing, even a year ago, somebody couldn't make it. Well, you adapt. You go where they're at. You do what needs to be done.
Absolutely. So let me tell you, we adapted. For me, I do a lot of listing interviews, and instead of going to homes in person, I am using Zoom to do this over the internet, and it's been very successful. I think the nice thing is when a client will contact me, reach out and want me to talk to them about listing their home, I can, with their camera on their phone, they can walk me through and we can make staging suggestions, some changes, things that may or may not need to be done, and get everybody ready. Because here's what's going on, folks. Figure a spring, and where the spring is getting more and more tighter because there's pent up buyer and seller activity, but no one's able to do it for the most part actively. Though I will tell you, last week we had 10 contracts come in. This past weekend, not this weekend, the one before, we had 2 accepted contracts. We had another accepted contract on Wednesday of this week. So the business is continuing. The one thing we had as a problem from our standpoint, everybody, is that my son Greg thought for a short time, in fact, he appeared on in the media, thought he had contracted the virus. Why did you think you had contracted it, Greg?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't sure what I had. If it was the flu, and my whole experience at the beginning of this, it was, I think we're 8 days out now on my self-imposed quarantining. But
right.
I thought I had, symptoms unlike the flu, nothing I'd ever felt before, but I had a shortness of breath. I had a dry cough, fatigue, muscle aches, weird, something that I just hadn't experienced before. So I tried to contact the right number and the right people. I got the runaround, and I wanted to share my story about how I went, basically was, just like everyone, we're seeing it happen now. We understand why, because the tests need to go to the people who are most ill, who need to be admitted right now.
Yeah.
And then the policies and political side, that's hopefully will work itself out, but that's not here nor there. But so my whole thing was I couldn't get tested for a flu. Thankfully, after 6 or 7 days, I started feeling better. But what we're hearing now, and not to get into it, but we're hearing that we don't know where it's been. Some people may have had it already, and they don't know. So as this unfolds, this is why we'll, continue to do what we're doing. We are shifting like Chuck and Lee and everybody else. We are adapting. People are, just as far as our agents are going, some people are doing the virtual tours where an agent will go by themselves. Vacant homes are easier, obviously, because there's nobody there. Right. And we're taking the precautions and protocols to wear gloves, booties, whatever we need. In some cases, I know some agents were going out and getting those painters masks. They have N95 filters as not to try to disrupt the supply, obviously, that needs to go to our medical workers. But as agents, we're adapting too. We've got agents who have contracts that are out there, and real things are happening. Like one of our listings just recently, we got a call from the buyer's agent, and the buyer lost their job due to they were in the service industry, and so they are no longer going to meet the requirements to get a loan. And so now we're waiting to see what's going to happen with all these new bills that are getting passed. So there are real, as far as us adapting, there are real problems that we are facing in the market that we are all trying to meet head on.
So we'll get back to Greg in a second, because I want to talk to you about friends that you're talking to who are having problems, who are in New York.
Yeah, a lot of first-time home buyers having some issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get back to that. Let me circle back to Randy for a second, because one of the questions that was brought up was this new doing online closings. And not saying that it's a Swan issue, it's the mortgage industry in general. Mm-hmm. Up until now, you have to be there in person or a mail away that has to be notarized. Are you seeing any movement right now that will help our closing attorneys move forward?
Right. And United Wholesale Mortgage, it was passed in Kentucky. Lee, you might know more about this. I think back, or any of the title people, I think September or October last year, where you could do e-closings, but United Wholesale Mortgage has been on the forefront of doing e-closings, and now obviously it's going to really come into play here, where you can just e-sign and do like we're doing here on Zoom. So that is coming. Like Kevin alluded to earlier, it was going to be probably a 5-year process that I think is going to be sped up to probably a 6-month to a year process.
Yeah, maybe even sooner. I think. Do we all agree that the technology that is available now has helped us weather, at least to some level, this problem? If this had happened 25 years ago, not only would it be more difficult for all of us working, but anybody who is staying at home, and they should be, we wouldn't have had the cable, the internet, the activity that we're able to do. So I think that's a big plus. I think the big thing is it's going to start, Randy, not to put it on the mortgage industry's shoulders, but loosening up the requirements for the closing attorneys to be able to follow, to be able to not have people there in person and do it safely. But hopefully this will all pass in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be able to get back to business as normal.
Well, I
right?
would say the one godsend too is that Kentucky just happened to adopt electronic recording as of January 1 of this year.
January
Without
1.
that,
Goodness.
I mean, yeah.
yeah, we would all be out of business right now. So
Yeah.
whoever pushed that through in a timely manner, it saved all of us.
So where are we seeing the problems at this point? And we'll go around the horn. We identified the getting the bottleneck cleared for mortgages. Brad, for inspections over at Home Team, and we're not just singling out Brad as the inspector, we're talking about all inspection services. What problems are you seeing on the forefront or you're already experiencing that needs to be addressed sooner than later?
Well, I think that the biggest shift we had to make was moving to some sort of a virtual walkthrough or some sort of virtual report. We wanted to keep the customer service aspect and continue to do some sort of virtual walkthrough. Some homeowner inspectors have just said, hey, I'll send you the report, and I just can't do anything else. The other thing we had to learn was the disinfectant side. It was a little bit tough to find the materials that we needed to use because there was a run on the consumer grade products. So it did take a little bit of time to put all the sanitizer kits together we knew we were going to have. Other than that, it's just capacity. We're running, full inspection slots every day of the week right now. And frankly, just trying to figure out how to, increase capacity while still being able to deliver the report and the virtual walkthrough within a few hours of the inspection. I think that's the biggest challenge we have.
And let's come back to that topic in a second, looking at the positive of what's been able to be accomplished and moving forward. But back to our three attorneys, Chuck Crosby, Kevin Disler, and Lee Harris. Anything that you're seeing as a bottleneck that needs to be addressed either by the state legislature, the real estate commission, the mortgage banking industry, anything that this is a platform to really speak your mind, anything that needs to happen to keep things moving forward in a great direction?
Well, I could just bring up one thing. We were trying to get some of the underwriters to talk to the Secretary of State about, we were talking about notarizing in the presence of,
Yeah.
whether Zoom, Skype, or there's some other type of secure audio visual would be satisfied in the presence of, because that's the main roadblock we have is I cannot notarize a document unless I'm in your presence. The only way for us to have a safe closing is for me to not be in your presence.
So you're prescribing that you could, besides looking through a glass door at somebody's house, but you could see a Zoom meeting where you're watching somebody on the other side of the camera sign the documents, but not being physically present.
Yeah. I'll just mention, I've got an office and a conference room next door, 2 cameras, 2 monitors. If I see them execute the document, that is not a valid notary of the document. I have to be in the presence of, which is a line of sight. And if there's a door with a window, and Chuck and I had a discussion this afternoon, does that satisfy? We just need some better guidance.
Yeah, there's some great old law school cases about, signing a will and not being in the room, watching them from the kitchen as they sign in the living room, not being valid. I mean, it gets really kind of tricky when you put, however many 100 years of common law we have put together. The issue is they've got the remote online notaries, and that's kind of a hybrid what we're talking about here. If I'm in the next room, and we see you sign via this fashion, is that going to work? Like if you have the remote online notary and you're, a town away, which is it? And they're just, the platforms as they exist, they sound good. And it looks like valid technology. It's just not built for jumping into the deep end right now.
So let me ask both you, Chuck, Kevin, and Lee, let me point this at you first. So what needs to be done by who to get things moving and make it easier and safer for clients to close throughout not only the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, but also the United States? What needs to happen?
Well, I'd like to first off say that it's not unsafe. per se, the way it's going. I could see if I didn't know you, it would have sounded like you were saying we're in a war zone doing closings. It's really not like that. If you're taking the proper precautions, you're following the rules, etc., it's still perfectly acceptable. What we're talking about is how to make it more perfect, so to
Or
speak.
easier.
Or easier.
Or easier, right.
Because right now it's a pain in the butt going outside and
more
doing
fluid.
Well, and I just to interject, we did our first one with a gentleman who was in Virginia on Notary Cam, which is a national service.
right.
And the technology was slick. It was more secure in that the ID that is put up to the image, to the camera, is sent through a database. They automatically cross-reference. So it's actually more secure than what you and I do. And it's a slick system, but it seems like it needs to be accelerated, at least on a temporary basis.
That's what I'm talking about. We went from baby steps to jumping in the deep end on this puppy, and talking.
But isn't that what I mean? It's not to say that this is a war. Obviously, the virus, whatever verb you want to use, whatever action. But this is what happens in these times: is that major steps are taken. We're forced to accelerate our advancements in all technologies.
Well, I would say I've never even heard of Zoom 2 weeks ago. Now,
there you have
5 different.
You would have been knowing about their
references.
stock. I mean, hey.
Yeah, we need to get their stock.
We should have bought stock in it.
Well, and Kevin's going to agree with me here. Real estate laws and real estate procedures are old. They're moribund because real estate isn't going anywhere. Everybody wants to have the same rules that have always existed. It's an area of very slow change, and all of a sudden we're going from not knowing what Zoom is to trying to do
becoming the new unnormal.
Well, and it's also the new way to do radio shows too.
Yeah, there you go.
Lee,
this is podcasting, baby. Welcome to the future. We could go an extra 30 minutes after the radio show and have a little special secret content.
We only have 7 minutes left. Lee, let me ask you, Lee Harris Limestone, as the former legal counsel for the Kentucky Real Estate Commission, do you see any things that the commission can do to ease the backlog of because we're about to get into a topic right now that everyone is very busy. Can the commission, the new commission, under our new governor, do anything different to help real estate continue to move forward?
Well, I think one thing that has happened, I think, is that they have kept real estate open under the new governor as an essential business that can still keep going. And as we spoke about it at the beginning of the podcast, being able to do creative things like virtual showings or showings with fewer people or things like that. He has not shut down showings. He has not shut down closings. He has not shut down, letting real estate go forward. That is a positive, because obviously some businesses are.
California, their board pulled it. There's no open houses, no showings, no nothing. They're pulling everything.
Well, we pulled open houses most of ourselves anyway.
Right, we did open houses at least, but LA is all of California, their board of realtors, they sent out a notice that they're shutting everything down. Now, obviously, they've got the bigger cities with more capacity and more issues. But that's just per capita. Thankfully, we're not as dense, and hopefully that will. Lend itself to us being able to continue at a slower pace.
So
I was just going to add the arcane thing. Like, Greg would have to go to your office and get the good faith deposit check, drive it over to Chuck's office, have his client endorse it, run it through.
Have you heard of Venmo? Can you create a Venmo escrow account? We can just shovel it right there, easy, bang bang.
Well, it's a broker's escrow account, and there needs to be some reform on that. It's a process where we're having paper and the virus on the paper being spread to 3 or 4 parties on every transaction.
Yeah, but I can see the workaround on that, and that would be the good faith money stays at the brokerage that it is, and it's deducted from the real estate commission that goes to the brokerage.
Seriously, if you guys don't know, this Venmo is it's like PayPal. The brokerage has their account. It's like a.
Yeah, what I just said solved the problem.
Bob just said solves the problem.
But some brokers do not do that, though.
I know they don't.
No, I get that, but that's what I'm saying is that needs to change so that it eliminates one more step of physically having to drive a good faith check from the brokerage office to the closing attorney. So let's look at the positive. We've got a little more than 4 minutes left. So Brad, let's start with you. In terms of business, have you seen things slow down in the past week or two?
In my business, just a little bit. I mean, we track pending sales. We're looking at that. We know that it's down a little bit, but our business seems to be remaining very strong. We're staying busy. We're booking up every day. And so I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a slowdown coming. It hasn't gotten to us yet. Maybe I'm just a little bit further downstream, but we're remaining very hopeful and optimistic that as long as the real estate market, remains, that we should remain, steady.
And I
And
should
then,
point,
like
yeah, good.
I was say, and then like you say, it's going to spring, and when everyone gets back out on the streets again, I think it's going to be explosive.
I
Be a lot
completely
of
agree.
activity.
If you're just joining us, folks, what we've done is we're recording this show a couple of days prior to using Zoom. Each of us are in our own homes and participating safely to do this radio show.
This is my home. This is awesome.
Wait, are you at your
Well, I've
office?
been here 8 days.
Wait a second. Are you at your office or are you at your home?
No, I'm in my home.
Okay, you got me worried there. So the goal, and what I want everybody to know is, yes, we've got problems with the virus. Hopefully, it's going to be under control. But more importantly, in some aspects, life does continue to go on with regards to real estate. So let's go to because we know Randy is swamped. We've already heard that Swan Financial has got more refis than they could ever have.
And listen, those are the positive stories. But I'm out here to remind you, there are lots of first-time home buyers. A lot of people, I'm 32 years old. I've got a lot of friends who are in the service industry, or they're in, Humana, or they're some people are doing okay. They're working from home. Some people are getting hours cut back, and they're on the verge of losing their job, and they're no longer able to meet the debt to income ratio without a paycheck. So hopefully, as Brad said, he might be a little bit on the other side of the wave. I don't think Louisville will ever, just like in 08, 09, when everything went bust, we're not a big city. It probably won't affect us nearly as direly as one of these big cities. And hopefully it will drive other people. We've talked about this. It will drive more people to smaller cities like Louisville, away from these huge mega cities where, God forbid, something like this were to happen again, being locked down in a rural area versus an apartment condo with 5 other people and hundreds of other people in your building. It may help us, and that spring that you're talking about really will accelerate to degrees that we've never seen before. So,
but just
I can tell you that, especially a lot of it in your group and a lot of my realtors, we're really busy right now on purchases.
And that's
there are a lot of people.
New purchases or reconstruct. Randy, is that refis or new purchases?
No, new purchases, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of people that were in, and Bob, this, the inventory was extremely low. And I just got off the phone with 2 of your customers today. Actually, this evening. And they said, I'm buying right now because I can get a decent deal. And there's not 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 offers on the house.
All right. We've got less than a minute left, just to finish up with Chuck and Kevin and Lee, just to confirm, you guys are still doing closings even in spite of the new regs and safe precautions, correct?
Absolutely.
That's correct.
We will adapt, improvise, and overcome. That's what we've always done.
Brad, Brad, you're, as he's already mentioned, you are busy. We are desperately
we're still showing them.
We're still showing them, but we're looking for homes to list because the inventory's down, and we need you, if you're thinking about selling, to reach out. So you can call me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483. Randy Rocky at Swan Financial, 645-0736. Kevin Dissler at Pitt and Frank at 895-9900. Lee Harris over at Limestone at 649-7964. And Brad Lawler over at Home Team. There goes my timer. At Home Team, 357-0813. Thank you, folks, for being here. We will hopefully see all of you next Sunday right here on News Radio 840 WHAS. Thanks again, Greg.